Hi, everyone. This is Lauren Baker with Search Engine Journal. Welcome to today's SEJ webinar, supported by Stat and Moz. Today, I have Tom Capper with us, who will be really going over a lot of the questions surrounding drops in traffic associated with Google AIOs, and then how to identify any true loss utilizing GA4, Google Search Console, and rank tracking. I'll give you a chance to say hi real quick, Tom, and then I'll take care of some housekeeping.
Yeah, thank you very much. So just to briefly introduce you to myself, I work at Stat and Moz and the search science team. So I'm working in sort of our data and our product innovation. And I'm really happy to be here today. And I think it's a really critical topic right now, right?
Absolutely. A lot of questions around this. So I won't divulge much before we get started and let everyone kind of get a chance to funnel in. So as we're presenting today's SEJ webinar, the stats, just to let you know, there will be a poll that's launched during the webinar. Please make sure to participate in that. It really gives us an idea of your experience, especially on the AIO side. As most of you know, there is a chat option here where you can have discussions, chime in, let us know where you're coming in from, this and that. But please try to differentiate chatter with questions by asking questions in the Q&A section within the webinar control panel. That way, after Tom's done presenting, after about 30 minutes or so, we'll be able to go through the Q&A live. And also, just to let you know, underneath the presentation, you'll also see emojis. So to have a little bit of fun, give some smiley faces, thumbs up, whatever it may be, hearts. And then there is a handout that's available. I'll be pinning that towards the end of the webinar today. It's a PDF on measuring AIOs, measuring AIOs and the data around that. At the time, I believe we're going to have a breakout room today, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So this is sort of a agenda of what we're going to discuss today. So we're going to talk about where we're at with AIOs right now, how they appear, how we can layer in rank tracking to help understand what's going on. And then lastly, sort of more philosophically, how concerned we should be as SEOs. But yeah, as Lauren just said, and thank you very much for the intro, by the way, Lauren. At the end, there's going to be a little bit, at the end of my presentation, there's going to be a little bit of a choose your own adventure. So either you can stay with myself and Lauren in this room, and we're going to do some Q&A from the sidebar from you guys, or potentially some of you can go through, there'll be an option that comes up to go through to a breakout room where you can go and hear a little bit more about how we're actually solving these problems in our product. Which is Stat Search Analytics. So if you can choose at that point whether you'd rather do Q&A, whether you'd rather see the sort of how the product works in action, because obviously I'm talking more about sort of the data and our findings as a presentation as opposed to, more of a demonstration. So yeah, without further ado, let's get going. So the first thing I want to talk about is just a bit of a situation update, because actually, AIOs have been with us for a little while now, but a lot has changed even in the last few months. So the data I'm working with, sort of the corpus that we're working with to produce these slides, it's about 11,500 keywords is the starting point, and I've generated those just by taking the top 500 keywords from a bunch of different categories in Google. I don't think it's actually called Google Keyword Planner anymore, right? I don't work in pay-per-click advertising, you can probably tell, but from Google Ad Planner, whatever that's called now. And then I've multiplied that across 2 devices and across 3 locations. You've got England, the US, and Ireland. So in total, this is a data set of about 69,000 keywords. Now, about a year ago, slightly more than a year ago, you may remember we got the full release, certainly in some markets, the full release of AIO that had previously been called Search Engine Experience. And then it came out, and a lot of people, including myself, were surprised that Google felt it was ready to go, although they have improved a lot since. Then much more recently, we had the EU rollout. So I'm in the UK. We've had them in the UK for quite a while. I think it was not long after the US. Many of my colleagues at Stat are in Canada, and that was a similar case. But in the EU, they didn't have them for a really long time. So in spring this year, I think it was late March or early April, they started appearing. in all of these European markets, which is why I've included Ireland as a sort of English-speaking European market in the data today. So the main thing that I want to share in terms of the situation update is that there's been a huge increase in the last 6 months in every market. So, this is looking at mobile and desktop, and you can see that in the US, it's gone up by a big chunk, but in the UK, GBEN, it's those bars in the middle, it's more than doubled on both desktop and mobile, how often we're seeing AIOs now. And in Ireland, obviously, there was nothing 6 months ago, and now we have it on 14% of SERPs. Now, I should say, as you'll see later on, or just in a few slides actually, these numbers do vary depending on what your site is. So, I highly recommend you get your own data for this kind of thing, but I'm just trying to give you as neutral an overview of the market in general as I can. So what I will say is that this AIOs for now are still overwhelmingly appearing on what we would call informational searches. So that's, searches that are right at the top of the marketing funnel, where you're asking, questions, you're trying to discover the answer to trying to discover a fact, trying to solve a simple problem, as opposed to, when you're further down the buying cycle. And we're now seeing AIOs on 39% of informational searches. And I believe this data is, this is just from the US and UK, because otherwise we can't reasonably compare it with December, right? Because then if we included Ireland, obviously there'd be a big increase because there was none before. So this is just the US and UK, because otherwise we can't make that comparison for the last 6 months. But yeah, 39% of US and UK SERPs, we now see, US and UK informational SERPs, we now see AI overviews. What's interesting is further down the funnel, these numbers are still lower, but the percentage increase is large, right? For transactional searches, you're right at the bottom of the conversion funnel, to go from 3% to 9%. That's 3 times as often. We're now seeing AI overviews in those searches. Navigational, so a lot of this is branded, right? You're searching for a brand, you want to click through to their website, and there's an AI overview. Yeah, obviously not that often, only 9% of the time still, but it's still notable that there's this big increase. There's also, sort of reinforcing that point, there's a big overlap between AI overviews and other informational search features. So things to know, feature snippets, found the web. So what I'm showing you here is that, for example, across all of the search engine results pages that we collected here, only 5% of them had a featured snippet. But if we restrict that to the ones with an AI overview, it was 14%. So in a lot of cases, and it's weird, right? Because these are kind of fulfilling the same function, the feature snippet and the overview, but in a lot of cases, they were put in the same searches. I'll also say that your money in your life, which this is a phrase that Google has used in the past, but this basically applies to sort of high stakes searches, often around finance, law, health, this kind of thing. You might assume, Google wouldn't want to risk offering AI answers in this kind of space because it could be legally complex. But actually, they're some of the most common. There's a lot of data on this slide, but I just want to call out some of it. So the tallest bar that you can see in the middle is health. So you can see now in May, 58% of health-related searches in our data set had AI overviews. That is staggering to me. This is really important information. And one of the other high bars you can see is 50% of law and government searches. So these are high stakes topics. So I just want to ask before we go any further, for those of you watching, I don't know how many of you will have thought about this much, but how have AIOs actually affected your site? I can speak to how they've affected the sites that I work on, and I'll speak to that later in the presentation and tell you how I figured that out. But I'm really interested in what you guys are seeing at the moment. So there should be a poll coming up for you, I think.
Yes, the poll is launched, and we do have responses coming in. Nice. So once some of those come in, I'm going to max it out so we can share the responses, but they are coming in quite smoothly.
Yeah, so I'm sort of perversely, I guess, I'm interested to see the number of not sure, but that's good, right? Because that's the kind of question that we're going to be trying to ask as we go, trying to answer even as we go further.
Before that sways the way people vote, right now we have 27% not sure, 40,
Sorry, use the ballot.
46% negatively, 21% neutral, and only 8% positively, which is quite interesting. And at the time, you didn't sway the results that much, so that's good to see.
So that's a shame. I love introducing bias. So I'm not too surprised. Negatively is certainly a common story. Some of the examples that I'm going to share later are definitely more on the neutral end of the spectrum. Yeah, this is interesting to see, and I think this aligns pretty closely with industry sentiment, right? The fact that the most common responses have been negative and I don't know, I think that sums up where we're at as an industry right now, right?
Yeah, I'm really interested in hearing the kind of sites that are actually benefiting from AI overviews.
Yeah, me too. I have Google has said that a lot, right? Google has said, oh, we'd really like you to believe that they didn't phrase it quite like this, but Google has said that they think people will benefit and there'll be more clicks, but I have not actually seen anyone with data to support this. So I think that may be a slight mistruth, but we'll come back to this later, sort of bring it all together into whether the effect is very concerning or a little bit concerning or not concerning at all. But before we get there, I want to start putting together some of the pieces of what data we as SEOs actually have right now, so that we can bring that together in a way that's useful. So let's start with the Google tools. Let's start with Google Analytics, and then we'll look at Google Search Console. So AIOs by default, they're just showing up as organic traffic in Google Analytics. However, there is more that you can do. So this is a screenshot from Stats, which is our rank tracking tool that I'm representing today. And you can see this is a list of the URLs that have appeared for an archived search engine results page. And you can see that a lot of them have this fragment at the end where it says #:tilde : text equals, and then all of this sort of URL encoded text. And two of the URLs in the overview have this. And also this is a featured snippet, right? The answer paragraph. So the Moz URL, obviously I have access to Moz's Google Analytics happily. The Moz URL is also has one of these snippets. So I'm just going to briefly call out a comment in the sidebar. So someone says it's Alexander says, it's hard to tell what's causing positive or negative effects. They're an easy bad guy to point the finger at. We got hit harder by the November core update. I think that's a really good point, and it's a strong story. That's exactly what I'm going to try and help you solve today, because that's a really common story that we've been hearing from customers as well. So going back to Google Analytics, this is not new, by the way. This is something that people have been doing for feature snippets for a little bit of a while, a couple of years, I think. And you can add, if you use Google Tag Manager to power your Google Analytics, which I want to cautiously say maybe the majority of people do now, certainly a lot of people do now, a lot of sites. You can add a snippet like this to actually capture this fragment from the search engine results. And then in your analytics, you can make a report. So the deck will be available afterwards. So I've just gone explore, freeform, and then I've put in this this event that I'd created from Tag Manager. And this is how that appears. So this is the report that I just made with those that workflow I just showed you. And you can see that this is the text from Moz's featured snippet. And these are clicks through to my website. This doesn't solve the whole problem yet, right? This is just giving us some information that we can use. And yeah, it's all going to be shared afterwards, Irving, don't worry. This gives you some information to help you figure it out. And I'll show you later how you can bring this together. So this is the same snippet in the HTML. So again, this is in our app. This is in the rank tracker. We show you the full HTML as well as the rankings and this kind of thing for each keyword. And you can see this is the same text with the Moz featured snippet. Keywords are ideas and topics that define what your content is about. And this is the same thing, keywords and ideas. So this is these clicks are all from that feature snippet, and we can see what page they came to as well. And then we can see also in the rankings, we see in the ranking, we've got the same things also. We've seen in 3 places, So we can definitely isolate to some degree where these clicks have come from with a click count. But there's some problems here. You might have already figured this out. So firstly, we're supposed to be talking about AI overviews, right? And I've just showed you how to isolate clicks from a feature snippet. And that's one of the problems here, is that Google is using the same fragment for feature snippet. Leona asks, do you have to use Google Tag Manager? Yes, I'm afraid you do for this method. So this is in the feature snippet, and we're supposed to be looking at AI overviews. So you can use your rank tracker to isolate, where the snippet is the snippet, and then you can sort of blend that together and filter down. But this is sort of a bit of an ambiguity on the Google Analytics side. You also notice one of the URLs in the AI overview, the Wikipedia one, did not have a snippet. So although we know, those clicks I showed you in Google Analytics, those clicks definitely did come from this snippet, we can't say that that was all of the clicks from this snippet, because sometimes they don't have this text fragment. So that's kind of annoying, right? So pros and cons for Google Analytics in terms of what it's contributing here. Pros, we can map traffic to specific features using a rank tracker in combination. Major con, it's inconsistent. It's in feature snippets as well, and not every AIO has the fragment text. We also, obviously within analytics itself, we don't have keyword level filtering. So we're having to do quite a lot of work to blend that with the rank tracking data to make sure we're not looking at the same snippet from multiple keywords or multiple features or something like this. So that's what you can do with Google Analytics. You're probably thinking that is not enough, or that is not going to cut it for me, and you're exactly right. We need to blend in more data. So what can we get in Google Search Console? This is Moz's Google Search Console data for the keyword URLs. So I'm being a bit meta here. Like if you Google URLs, then Moz is one of the sites that appears. And this is our Search Console data. So you can see, we've got impressions over time, and we've got, average position that I've put up here. This bit on the right, and you can kind of see it in the impressions, this is where we started appearing in the AIO for URLs. And that resulted in us getting a lot more. I think I filtered this down to only US, something like that as well. But you see we started getting a lot more impressions once we appear in the AIO. And the Google Search Console charts and data, they do include AIOs as if they were regular search. They don't split them out, but they do include them. There's a problem here, which is that, as I say, because it's all rolled in together, we only know that there's an AIO there because of other tools. The only reason I'm able to put this red box on and say this is when there is an AIO is because I also have this in rank tracking, right? So it's not doing, again, kind of like Google Analytics, it's not doing enough on its own. This is useful, but not in isolation. We can also see there's something weird going on here. The impressions definitely went up, right, when the AIOs started appearing. But the average position is pretty woolly. The AIO, I would say, counts as a high ranking position. And Google say that actually they award all AIO rankings position 1, which I think is maybe true. But it's not obvious on this chart, right? The average position maybe goes up a bit, but not consistently. It's not in line with impressions. This is a really strange metric. So yeah, some of the metrics in Google Search Console, not particularly useful. For those of you that don't know, this is the official Google guide to average position in Google Search Console. This is actually pretty much the sum total of their advice. It looks like it was made a long time ago. I suspect it was. And you can see that rankings have a rather interesting sort of flavor to them. And then there's another problem here, which is that if you arrive with a second lower position in Google Search Console, so say you were first and your average position was 1, and then you become first and 10th, your average position is now 5. So it looks like things got worse, but actually most of us would think that's worse, neutral, probably better. So it's a very unintuitive metric. We did get some clarification last month with Google saying, as I say, that all AI view links share that single position. But again, it's not obvious when you look at the charts that this is the case. Right, so this is how it looks in a rank tracker. It's the exact same. It's the exact same keyword with the exact same filtering that I just showed you in Search Console. This is how it looks in rank tracking. So you can see there's 2 lines here. We've got the orange line, which is the base ranks. That's only looking at traditional organic. And then we've got the blue line, which is looking at everything, including AIOs. So you can see again that when the AIO started appearing, we're getting, when it's there, and it was quite inconsistent for a long time, when it's there, we get a much higher rank, but our base rank is kind of similar to what it was before because our traditional organic rank didn't change. Right. So this gives us that context. But yeah, pre-existing lower positions are maybe tanking the average here. Like this average is nowhere near 1, right? And if we're in the AIO, now when I showed you, we're often at position 1 as measured in the SERP, and then that's not how it appears in Google Search Console. It's like position 14 or something. So yeah, the average position metric may be not so useful, but the impressions and obviously potentially clicks is interesting, although you'll notice the number of clicks that we get for ranking first here, and this is maybe the problem we'll come on to later, right? The number of clicks we get for ranking first here is 7 for better part of a year. So not great. Right. So pros and cons. Yeah, it says only 7 clicks, question mark, question mark, question mark. My views exactly. It's atrocious. Anyway, so pros, we can filter keyword and URL combinations in Search Console, unlike in Google Analytics. It's very powerful when the AIO and the organic result are different URLs. That enables a lot of interesting filtering and a lot of interesting data, and that is often the case. However, on the flip side, AIOs aren't being separated here from regular organic traffic, and the metrics are quite poorly defined. So, just like with Google Analytics 4, we had to bring something else in to get the full picture. There's also an elephant in the room here, which is the AI mode. So AI mode, for those of you living under a rock, firstly, I'm very jealous. Secondly, AI mode is separate to Google AIOs. It's a separate tab in search. It's not in every market yet. AI mode is going to get its own Search Console report. So this is likely to give us some very interesting data. Right, so there's some interesting questions in the sidebar, but I'm falling behind on time, so I'm going to press forward with the slides, maybe as I should have done in the first place, but layering in rank tracking here. So you noticed before that I was layering in rank tracking to try and contextualize what we were looking at. So your rank tracker, or any good rank tracker, and obviously I do have a bias, but I can concede that there are others in the market. It introduces 3 data points. Firstly, whether the AIO is present or not. This is really critical information that you're not getting anywhere else except rank tracking right now. And it makes it very hard to make use of the data in other platforms if you don't know when the AIO was and wasn't there. So you can see this is a report, a keyword table in stat, and I filtered it down to only keywords that had AIOs on this day. And so you can see that in the SERP features column on the right. Secondly, whether you are actually appearing in that AIO, and if so, in what position and with what URL. So you can see here, Moz is appearing in position 1 in the AIO, and this is the URL with that text fragment. So this is all critical information for us making use of those other data sources. So for those asking, what platform is this? This is Stat, which is Moz's sort of enterprise rank tracking platform. There's going to be a handout and some other information at the end, and you'll be able to see a demo in the breakout room as well. So traditional rank is also really critical information for contextualizing this. So you can see here we have this base rank metric, which only shows you traditional organic results. So, Moz is number 1 in the AI overview, but the base rank here is actually going, this is not great for us, right? It's actually going to a SEMrush in position 1 because they're the traditional organic winner and we're the AIO winner. So we've got two different metrics. And again, this is really useful to contextualize the information we get elsewhere. We might also choose to look at page level data over time. So this is a chart showing what is the share of voice of AI overviews for a particular page. So I filtered keywords down for what page is ranking. So for a particular page, and it turns out that for this particular page, I think this is one of our learn pages, AIOs are actually declining in share of voice for the keywords that this page ranks for, which is quite interesting, right? So how do we bring all of this together? If we combine these 3 data sources, we can actually start to build a picture of impact, of what is happening, of where the traffic loss did or didn't come from, or as someone said earlier, maybe it was a core update. So I'm going to give you 3 sort of worked examples. Firstly, the keyword URLs. So as I showed you before, Moz has sort of had historically middling traditional organic rank. Like you can see, we're not in the top 5 of traditional organic here, but we are in position 1 in the AI overview with this fragment. And we know from that rank tracking I just showed you, we know that this sort of surge in impressions in Google Search Console is from that AIO appearance. But we can also see that when we isolate that snippet in Google Analytics, the snippet isn't here. So we're looking, if you remember, the snippet from rank tracking was URLs come in various forms. When we look in Google Analytics, we can't see that text. None of these say URLs come in various forms. So we're not actually getting clicks from this snippet, even though we're in position 1. So the picture we can form is that we've got low clicks from organic and AIO combined. There are very few clicks shown. I commented it was 7 earlier, right? We know from rank tracking, from stat, that there is an AIO, and we know what the snippet text is. Then we know from Google Analytics 4 that this snippet is not generating any sessions, which kind of goes what we saw in Google Search Console, right? We're getting very few clicks, even though we have a position 1 ranking in the AIO. Now, the thing is, this keyword always drove very few clicks. Even before the AIO, we were always getting very little traffic here, and now we're still getting very little, which is none. So let's have a look at a second example. So this keyword, again, being very meta, this is the keyword SEO. So Moz, unsurprisingly, historically has ranked very well for the keyword SEO. So you can see we rank in the AIO in position 2 behind Google, but we also rank organically in position 5 now with a different URL. So we've got this beginner's guide, which is in position 5, and we've got this learn/SEO page, which is in the AIO. And the blue spikes here that you can see on the chart, when our rank, which includes all features, spikes to position 1 or position 2, that's when we're being featured in the AIO. So we can look at those days in our other tracking, right? The thing is, over time, total clicks have declined. So you can see our organic rank has gone down a bit, which we know already from rank tracking, and our clicks have gone down a bit as well. So clicks are the blue line, and you can see that they're sort of trending downwards on this chart. If we look only, so this is filtering in Search Console only for the URL that we know from rank tracking is the AIO URL. It's the one that appears in the AI snippet. This was never getting any clicks, and it still isn't. So no one is clicking on the AIO, even though we're position 1 or 2 in it. So again, the AIO doesn't seem to be driving any traffic. So the last example I'm going to look at is slightly different, which is keywords. So again, I'm being very meta. This is the keyword keywords. So Moz doesn't appear in the AIO. So you can see there is Backlinko, Wikipedia, and MailChimp are in the AIO, but Moz is in the featured snippet, which is also P1 organic. And you can see we appear with this. Keywords are ideas and topics that define, that's the snippet text. And we also see keywords that are ideas and topics that define what your content is about. This is also getting 32 clicks in Google Analytics. So we know that we're getting traffic from this featured snippet, even though there's an AIO above it. Thing is, though, this P1 was always driving quite little traffic. That 32 is actually over a really long period. So the clicks, the blue line, is sort of hovering around 1, 2, 3 a day. It's very low, even though this is a high volume keyword. Quite a lot of impressions, 165,000 impressions. And we're, even before the AIO view, we were getting very few clicks. Now, after the AIO view, we're still getting very few clicks. So maybe this isn't so different after all. Right. So that's 3 examples which all have quite a similar story, which frankly is how it's been for Moz.com, which is that there are keywords that were informational that never drove many clicks. People were already looking at feature snippets and this kind of thing and not clicking through. And now they're looking at the AIO and also not clicking through. So how worried should we be? So for Moz, the main takeaway is that these were hitting keywords that were already really, really low click-through rate, tiny fractions of 1%, even when we rank well. For your site, it may be different. And I really encourage you, all of the data I've shared with you today, you have access to. If you work in SEO, you probably have a rank tracker, hopefully a good one, right? That shows AIOs. You also have Google Analytics. Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager are both free. You also have Google Search Console. So this is all stuff that you can put together yourself. And I really recommend you do this for your own site because the answers from what I've seen in other people doing are very varied. In terms of what we're going to use for the impact assessments, we're basically mapping all of these together, right? So with Google Analytics, we map traffic to features. With Search Console, we map traffic to keywords. And then we bring those two together using our rank tracker to map keywords to features. Right. There's now going to be, as I mentioned at the start, a bit of a choose your own adventure. So there'll be an option that pops up on your screen for you to join the breakout room. If you go through to the breakout room, you're going to see some of this in practice in the product, in stat. So a little bit of a demonstration on how that can be done. Or if you stay here with me, we're going to do some Q&A just from what's being asked from the audience.
Thank you so much, Tom. That was really interesting to run through. And was it 7 clicks for the term URL?
Yeah, it's insane, right? Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of impressions in 7 clicks. So thanks, Google. Really appreciate it.
It's amazing. Just to let you know, everyone's your window has popped up to attend the breakout room or not, and I like the choose your own adventure analogy. So let's choose this adventure to move forward with the Q&A. Do you feel that AIOs will move down the funnel, Tom? This is a question that comes in.
That's really
we've seen them at the top. We've seen them kind of implemented within People Also Ask. Do you think it's going to move down the search funnel as people are utilizing Google?
Yeah. So I think there's 2 things there. One is, as you rightly allude to, they're moving down the SERP. So they don't just appear at the top anymore. They also appear at some of the deeper like follow-on features. And I think they will also move down the marketing funnel a bit more than they have already. I don't know if you remember when they were in beta and it was called Search Generative Experiences instead of AIOs. They were further down the funnel back then. And what they would do is they would have like product listings, or they would have local listings, or this kind of thing embedded in the AI overviews. And I've already started to see ads appearing in AI overviews recently as well. And to me, if they can put ads in them, so if they can put ads in them, they can move them down the SERP, right? They move them down the funnel, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because when Google did first announce this, those were the examples they were utilizing, like travel, shopping, local, whatever it is, because those are the obvious ones that they had the backend data and they've had it for years. But then also at the same time, that's your core monetization model, right? So that makes complete sense.
I think that's a great point for them. They need to be able to drive a click, right? That's how they make money. Yes. So these informational searches that, as we can see, were not generating any clicks anyway. That's a great place for them to put AIOs, because they weren't able to sell ads against those searches in the first place. So I think that monetization was necessary for them to move down the funnel, but that they now will move down the funnel. The happy thing is, if you're working in SEO in one of these verticals, you probably already have to have these product listing feeds. You probably already have to have a Google My Business presence. So you're already doing what you need to do to appear in those AIOs.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question that came in is, do you feel, and you touched upon AI mode a little bit during your presentation. One thing I've noticed about it is I see completely different information when I'm in AI overviews and AI mode, which is freaky.
And both of them are false, right? Just different false information.
Yeah, exactly. Different false information from different fake sources. Question is, do you see AI mode ultimately replacing search?
It's a really great question. To me, it feels like a coin flip. I'm leaning towards no. I don't think Google knows the answer to this question. No. I think they're waiting to see how popular that tab is, and what clickstream data I've seen in the market suggests it's not that popular. Like, it's less popular. I think Barry Adams published some data recently in his newsletter. I highly recommend his newsletter, by the way, even though it's competitor to my newsletter. They're both great. He published some data showing that it was actually getting less use than the Google News tab, which is already a very infrequently used tab in Google search. So at the moment, it's not that popular. I think if that remains the case, then Google will be reluctant to roll that out, because people are just not getting value out of it.
I also feel like the true test will be Google testing that within the device style environment, similar to Google Discover Mobile, things like that, right? The ability to just do that.
It is more powerful on a smartphone, right?
What's that?
It could be more powerful on a smartphone, right, where it can interact with your apps and things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Apple has that set up now with the Siri and ChatGPT connection. Most people I see utilizing ChatGPT on their phones actually talk to their phones to get the audio out. So we may be talking about finally hitting those voice search numbers that Google was projecting 10 years ago.
It's the year of voice search for sure. This time.
It's finally arrived. Yeah. Is it possible that clicks are declining because ChatGPT is replacing Google, and not just ChatGPT, but Perplexity and some of those others. What are your thoughts on that side?
My steer would be no. It's not impossible, but I don't think that's what's happening. We still see data suggesting that the number of Google searches is going up over time. And I think ChatGPT and some of these other tools, actually including AI mode to some degree, I think they serve a different need. I think they're doing a different thing. And if they do compete with Google search, it is only in that informational stuff, which, as we just saw already, was driving very few clicks. So no, I don't think that ChatGPT is cannibalizing particularly heavily. And, if you look at, again, at sort of clickstream data and this kind of thing, ChatGPT is going up in popularity very quickly, but it's still only about as popular as DuckDuckGo. And I don't think we were sitting around being like, is DuckDuckGo cannibalizing my Google traffic a couple of years ago, right? We didn't worry about it too much. So I think that's the sort of scale we're talking about here.
And being first to market doesn't always mean being the best or the most used, right?
For sure. I think Google will win, by the way.
What's that?
I think Google will win, by the way.
Yeah, they don't have the distribution, the device distribution. Anyway, we had a lot of questions that came in during your presentation about optimization or tips for appearing in AIOs or other AI results. And you kind of leaned into this a little bit on the shopping side with merchant center schema being set up. What are some specific tips that you have right now for appearing in AIOs?
Yeah, for sure. So further down the funnel, it's that stuff we were just mentioning. So if you're starting to see commercial or transactional AIOs, then it's the same kind of features and widgets that you see in regular search just being reused, same data sources, products, local, ads even, so on. Further up the funnel in informational, it's a bit of a different picture. And the data that we have so far, so we have a metric at Moz called brand authority, and that seems like a really strong predictor of whether you're going to appear in the AIOs. And that's a brand, it's for websites, but it's a brand strength metric. So we're kind of riffing off what we did in the past with, and still do with domain authority, which is link based. So this is like that, but it's brand based for domains. And the strength of your brand. So sort of, how many people are looking for you, how much you talked about elsewhere, this kind of thing. That seems to be the play, actually, not just for AI mode and Google AIOs, but also for ChatGPT and for Perplexity and so on.
I really liked how you brought in Search Console and GA4 data to kind of show a better view of when Moz appears in the AIOs and when it doesn't. One of the largest, I guess, challenges that a lot of folks in the industry are talking about, especially after the last Google I/O events, was one, the AIOs being very dynamic, and two, personalized, right? Based upon past behavior. Wanted to get an idea from you in terms of what Stat is doing for AIO tracking, and also some of the challenges that you see there are with tracking not just Google AIOs, but we see a lot of different tools out there that are traditionally search going. They're adding ChatGPT, they're adding Perplexity, whatever. And then we see a lot of these enterprise data companies that are focusing solely.
We're on that bandwagon as well, right? Like that. Yeah. That's where the market's going. So we have to play this game, and I think it is valuable. But I think it is interesting. So AIOs specifically are a bit more stable. I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory, but a pet theory that they're cached. Like they're served so quickly now, and they are curiously consistent. Right. So I think they might well actually not be particularly personalized, but things like AI mode for sure are, and obviously ChatGPT and so on to an extreme degree. So I think that is a really valid point. What we've said in the past about regular Google search, imagine a few years ago, you might have asked a similar question, and you might have talked about personalization, but you might also have talked about like locations and devices and this kind of thing. And what we would have said would be, well, you need to track a blend, right? You need to track a mixture of different locations, a mixture of different devices, a mixture of different keywords, and then you're going to build a picture. And in a platform like Stat, it would appear in your share of voice chart or something like this, bringing all of these different keywords together. I think that's the boat we're in here as well. if you're starting to look into prompt tracking, and it's something that we want to offer in app for sure, you watch this space. But if you're starting to look at prompt tracking, don't track like one prompt, because this doesn't make sense, and it's going to be a bit of a random number generator. But if you track a larger number of prompts and then take some aggregate metrics, then it starts to become more meaningful.
Got you. That makes a lot of sense too. Yeah, it's kind of funny too, because a lot of ChatGPT AI, it kind of reminds me of, do you remember a tool called Answer the Public? Everyone was talking about it about 10 years ago. It was a PR tool. It was a tool utilized by PR companies when it first launched. And then people in search started looking at it because they finally found something where they can look at, they can get questions, how accurate those were, whatever. But what that meant was you had sometimes people, and my point is, if you're in-house SEO, sometimes you would have someone on the publicity or the PR side tracking questions and conversations in search around your brand, while your job was solely to look at keywords and direct response on that, right?
Kind of a precast, right?
Right. So, when those silos can be broken down, you can get more data and more information and work cohesively. It's kind of interesting. In the in-house side, now there are jobs specifically on the AI visibility tracking, AI conversation tracking, prompt tracking, all of that, right? And so I'm just basically an open question. If anyone has that internally with recruiting or whatnot, or new jobs opening up in the business, and that's divided between what traditionally is SEO, that is interesting in that part too. One question that came in just now from Veen, if a site loses 30% of its organic traffic after the AIO update, even though rankings have remained stable, are there some solutions to recover that lost traffic? Or are there alternative SEO strategies to help adopt the AIO? But first part of that is, any solutions to help recover that lost traffic?
I mean, the first thing, this wasn't the question, but the first thing I would look at there is, how confident are we that this traffic loss was because of AIOs? Are you tracking somewhere that AIOs definitely did actually start appearing more for you and your keywords that you're then attributing the traffic loss to? Because there's, as someone else commented earlier, there's a lot of reasons this could be. There's a lot of other things happen at the same time. Rankings are stable, you say, sure, but if the AIOs did appear, the rankings in effect kind of are not stable because you got moved down by 400 pixels, whatever it is. So your rank as we're measuring it in the app, which includes AIOs and other features, would have gone down, right? But your traditional organic rank is stable, but that's not how users are going to see this. In terms of what you can do about it, these keywords are probably not very opportune anymore, is the harsh reality, right? And I've been talking about this for a while, but to me, there's sort of this rising bar of how complex a question is that it is worth someone clicking through to a website to answer it. And that bar is going up. And if you're on the edge of this, it's a bad place to be. And, I don't know what kind of business you are. Like, hopefully you're not a publishing business and you're saying this, because if so, you're in a rough spot. But if you're an e-com business and you're saying this, and obviously there are other places you can play further down the funnel, other channels, this kind of thing. If you're a publishing business, though, it's really rough. Diversify, try to have more of what we historically would have called an owned audience. But yeah, those keywords are probably never driving traffic again. It's the harsh reality as I see it.
One of the only sectors I can say to look into if you do see a loss in traffic would be if you're in the SaaS space. You work with a lot of companies that are Microsoft Teams oriented. Pay more attention to Bing because a lot of the people that work within those companies they're not allowed to use their phone. They're not allowed to use a laptop. They can only use their IBM, the IBM PowerBook or whatever, with Edge and with Teams and with Bing powered results. So if you look at the B2B space and the SaaS space, definitely keep an eye on that.
I would have to believe that certainly I've seen people and some good data suggesting that Bing is pretty relevant to ChatGPT search rankings as well.
That's true. Except for the Bing results like a fireworks stand, or maybe Piccadilly Circus and just stuff all over the place, right? So that's always something to keep an eye on as well. Interesting. Craig asked, I'm starting to see Google Search Console data from my websites picking up impressions for keywords that are anywhere between 10 and 30 words long. Is this a result of the AIOs?
That's really interesting. It could be. Rank track these keywords and find out would be. I know that's a really boring and self-serving answer, but that is genuinely the answer. You don't know whether it's as a result of a new feature or not unless you're tracking that, right? It's impossible to say otherwise, but it certainly sounds like it.
Yeah, that could also be a direct response, a direct result of. In the AIO answers, usually Google links to long tail queries, which don't point to. Sometimes those long tail queries can also be branded, right? So it could be search engine journal webinar with stat. Then you click on it and you go to this Google search result for search engine journal webinar with stat. And then the first result is a click to your site. Right?
It's really interesting to me because and I don't know if you remember, I think it's 2013 or maybe 2014, Google announced that they had conversational search now and that you could just type a long form question into the search bar. And they couldn't get us to do it, right? As users, we refused to cooperate. Yeah. And now a decade later, this is coming up again. And they're doing a lot of things in the search results that are designed. We see a lot of features now that are designed to push you in this way. So yeah, as you say, in the AIO result, also other places on the SERP, there are these long form questions you can click on that generate a new Google search. Right. But also in a lot of cases, you have these, don't know what the right term is, but these sort of rounded buttons at the top that just add things on the end of your keyword. So you'll search for, laptop, and then there'll be a button that says 14-inch. And if you click 14-inch, it just opens a Google search for 14-inch laptop. So they're just sort of teaching you to type a longer search term.
It's a great way to also fudge the numbers from an advertising perspective in terms of increasing impressions. It's almost like those old comedies where someone would they'd be running down the hall, they'd open the door and there's another door. And they open the door and there's another door.
Can't believe you think Google would try to mislead us in this way.
Well, earnings calls are coming up, so we'll see. Yeah. Adam writes, I assume that citation links within the AI overviews, sometimes there's like 10 of them, are not considered a rank. So are those considered a rank or not? Are they like how does that work?
We had a big debate about this internally because it is kind of subjective, right? And what we settled on is the sort of big visible preview links. We give those ranks 1, 2, and 3. And then the little citation links that look like a chain link or a paperclip or whatever, that they're open. They don't, a lot of the times they don't even open a website. They open like a preview of like a mini SERP within a SERP. We don't order ranking to this. Now you can see it there in the data potentially, but we don't order ranking. And similarly, when the AIO is not expanded, we also limit what we'll award a ranking, how many ranks that can be worth.
One trend I'm noticing here in these questions is that a lot of these questions seem to be about unbranded search. But a lot of companies that I work with and monitor, the largest increase, their increase in visibility is in branded, right? And so it's also very important, I would add, to monitor your branded AIO results. Where is the information coming from? If it's a school, is the tuition data accurate? Or is that coming from a third party, like bestschools.org or something like that? If you're consumable, side effect oriented questions, review oriented questions, where are the reviews coming in from? But really digging into, in addition to like a lot of the unbranded, because I know a lot of the focus is on traffic, but I'm also seeing some sites kind of dip a little bit on the branded side and looked into it, and that seems to be the reason why. Is because a lot of those questions that someone would search for, like a review about a brand, are already answered, right?
To me, it's crazy because I've often thought about navigational search. We have intent model, and it's not that navigational is branded, but there's a huge overlap. Like I've often thought of navigational as being heavily branded and vice versa. So I just want to click on the company's website And so that they would bother to show an AI overview even for this is just crazy to me. But if people are then not clicking through, as you say, it kind of proves that maybe they're just looking for opening hours or something like this.
Right. Or you already have one tab open where you're about to buy a product. Yeah. You open up another tab to search for reviews on the product and things like that, and then you just kind of go back and forth. Okay. So we had some fairly basic questions coming in here about Tag Manager, because I think for teams that are working more in an omnichannel style environment, sometimes everything is run through Tag Manager, and then sometimes it's not. Right, we're still copying and pasting to the head of the code. What's the difference between Tag Manager and Search Console? Does someone need both? So could you
absolutely? Everyone should use Search Console. You don't need Tag Manager to use Search Console. You just need to verify to Google that you own the domain. It's Google Search Console is the only place where you get robust click data from search on a keyword level. So you should absolutely do this. Tag Manager is more about, well, it's about many things, but it could be about how you deliver Google Analytics for your site, right?
Mm-hmm. And then also one interesting question that came up, and I've experienced this a lot working in the e-commerce space, was because my viewpoint Tag Manager came out because of all the tracking pixels that people serve and just to kind of get it. So this company uses Telium, which is a replacement for Google Tag Manager. And some companies are allowed to utilize Google-oriented. Can they set up something similar to what you ran through today with the tracking, utilizing another tool like Telium?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we have a particularly arcane setup on moz.com where we actually use both. Mm-hmm. But yes, you can absolutely use a different tag manager to do the same thing. As if your Google Analytics is being executed out of any tag manager, wherever that's being done, if it's not on page, and I would recommend taking it off page at this point, to be honest, but that's a conversation. If it's being done off page, then wherever that is, you can do this. It doesn't have to be Google Tag Manager. It's fair. Google Tag Manager is the most popular solution, right? But there are many in the market.
And then another question that came in was, do they have to use UTM tracking parameters, or are there other variants that could be utilized too?
No. There's no UTM involved here. Like, we wouldn't want to have a UTM on an organic landing page anyway, right? That's going to confuse things. So no, this it's Google that is appending this fragment on the end there. So you don't have to do anything on your side for these to appear. Google is inserting this hash in the search results and then therefore into the referral data that arrives in your analytics platform. I assume they do this for some tracking reason on their own side. I don't know, but yeah, you don't have to do anything in terms of like adding parameters on your site or anything like that.
Got you. Again, I had a lot of questions about ranking in AIOs, right? So we talked about like different types of content, I believe, making sure everything is synced up with like Merchant Center or whatever it may be, feeds. What about anything like just getting things back to basics, meta tags, schema, any kind of other tricks to.
I haven't done the most robust health on this. We're going to drop something in the next couple of months, probably at MozCon on this topic. Yes. But I don't. My steer would be that a lot of that stuff is not that important in AIOs. Right. I'm not saying it's unimportant, but I don't think it's like more important than regular organic. In fact, it's probably a bit less important than in regular organic. And it's, AIOs are biasing more towards what we might historically have called offsite signals. But I don't mean just links, but including links.
So we did have a question coming in, and we touched upon this a little bit in terms of Google testing ads in the AIO environment. Mm-hmm. But what impact have you seen with AIO on paid search?
That's not my specialist topic for sure, but for now, minimal, right? Because it's mainly appearing on these SERPs that Google was never going to serve ads on. I think that is a picture that will look very different in 6 months. So I would be really interested in, if there are paid search people listening, I'd be really interested in your thought process on whether you would enable ads in AIOs. I believe at the moment that's something you can turn on and off in Ad Planner. I'd be really interested in your thought process on whether that is a good or bad idea, because they are coming for you, AIOs, if you're in paid search.
They are, but you're not going to have AIOs if you don't have advertising to support the AIOs, right? So,
yes, someone has to advertise in them. It's just whether it's you or your competitors, right?
Right. And then they're coming from you if you're working on the paid side because of the AI tools that are being unleashed within Google Ads as well. Now, here's an interesting question. Do you think Google will use AIO featureability and or visibility as a positive signal that carries over beyond search? So beyond search, I'm thinking more so like possibly discover, whatever, YouTube oriented suggestions, right? Coming from the same brand, things like that. Because all of this is a connected ecosystem.
I've never thought about that. It's an interesting idea. My guess, this is pure speculation. My guess would be no, just because AIOs feel to me like a really immature feature right now. And so I don't think they would have thought through, how they integrate them elsewhere and this kind of thing and how they reuse this data. In the long run, perhaps. Right now, I would be more likely to guess that it goes the other way, where they're using some of those algorithms that they have from other features to power AIOs, as opposed to vice versa.
Right. That makes sense. Did have a question going back to GPT and Perplexity. How are they best tracked within analytics, either as a referral, but then this, I think it's Matt says that they're also seeing them appear in organic search referrals as well, or as an organic search source.
I think they would only appear as an organic search source if you had played around with your channel grouping in Google Analytics.
Possibly.
Because they don't send that as like part of their, they're not sending to UTM tagged organic URLs or anything like this. So it would be entirely up to your analytics platform. And the default is that they will call them a referrer or sometimes direct, which obviously is very annoying. I think the answer to the question though is that you should play with your custom channel grouping, and if the referrer is one of these domains, then you should put that in a channel group which is called AI tools or AI assistants or whatever you want to call it, something like this. We do this as well with our sites, and I'll be honest, the traffic we get does convert a little bit, more than I would have guessed actually. But we're talking about tiny fractions of the traffic and conversion we get from more traditional channels.
Last question, and I'm not sure if the breakout room is ended yet or not. But last question is, this is kind of interesting. So as a reminder, Google Analytics reporting is for basically all traffic to your site where that tag is fired, right? It's front-end reporting, customizable back-end. Google Search Console is only for Google. It's only Google, right? So, and there's also, there's Bing Webmaster Tools. There might be some others on the market, but have you heard anything about the future of individual properties such as ChatGPT and Perplexity setting up their own kind of version of Google Search?
I would love this. The only thing I've heard is that AI mode, as opposed to AI overviews, so the AI mode tab will get a Search Console report, and I think that is going to be a gold mine. It's going to be really interesting. Obviously, it depends how they do it, but I'm hopeful. I have not heard about anything similar being done for ChatGPT. I would love it if they did that.
I mean, when I think about it, I think of international search engines and stuff like that. Baidu,
they do, right?
Yandex. And once that happens, everybody else is like, we got to set up your Yandex.
When they start selling ads. When they start selling ads in ChatGPT, maybe they've got more of an incentive to offer.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Almost, from a reporting standpoint. Excellent. Tom, it's been great. Really appreciate you taking the time today to run through all of this.
Got it. Thank you.
This is all, it's in its infancy, but it's going at light speed, right? So that's the exciting part about this from a search perspective. The big thing I see, the cliche out there, is that traffic may be down, but conversions are the same or up.
Right.
Are you seeing similar data on that end?
Yes, essentially. I worry about the long term. In the short term, it's, as you say, where we're getting fewer of these top of funnel visits, but the bottom of funnel is okay. But we all know there's a big time lag between the top and bottom of the funnel. So I do worry about the long term, where it's like, how do you top of funnel content is one of those ways where you could have established yourself as a brand. Didn't you? Moz famously did this a decade ago or more, right? You use top of funnel content to establish itself as a brand. Can you make that play in 5 years' time? I'm not sure, right? Like, it makes it a lot harder for new entrants to come up in that way. If you're an established brand, you're still going to appear in all these recommendations and AI assistants and things, and the bottom of the funnel is probably fine. If you're a new brand, you have to do it in other channels, right? It has to be, these influencer marketing, it has to be social, it has to be in person, physical advertising, shall we say? Right. So yeah, I think that's really challenging. But for now, yeah, that is what I'm seeing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. Thanks for the team at Moz and Stat for putting this together. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. See you around.
Cheers. Thank you.